The doors to the Grand Assembly stretched upward for what seemed like forever. Ambassador Marcus Webb had seen images of this place before, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The chamber was vast enough to hold a small city. Thousands of seats rose in concentric circles around a central platform where Webb now stood alone. Above him, holographic displays showed his face magnified 100 times, ensuring every delegate could see the human who had caused such chaos. 3 days ago, an Earth vessel called the Wanderer had appeared in Kelthros space without warning. No identification codes, no response to hails. The ship had simply materialized through what looked like a tear in reality itself, remained silent for 4 hours while scanning 17 inhabited worlds, then vanished the same way it came. Now, the Galactic Council wanted answers, and they wanted them from Webb. He looked up at the assembled representatives. Hundreds of alien species filled the chamber. Some had faces he could recognize as faces. Others were clouds of gas held together by force fields. Some existed partially in dimensions his eyes could not fully perceive. They all had one thing in common right now. They were angry. High Arbiter Valen spoke first. His voice boomed through translation systems implanted behind Webb's ear. The Torvalian leader stood 3 meters tall, covered in scales that shifted between blue and green. His 4 eyes focused on Webb with an intensity that made lesser beings confess to crimes they never committed. Ambassador Webb of Earth, your species has violated Protocol 7 of the Galactic Charter. An unidentified military vessel entered restricted territory. It ignored all communication attempts. It demonstrated technology we cannot classify or counter. You will explain this immediately, or Earth will face sanctions that will cripple your civilization for generations. Webb kept his hands clasped behind his back. He had practiced this moment for weeks, but practice felt different when 3,000 alien species watched your every movement. Around the chamber, holographic displays showed footage of the Wanderer's arrival. The way it cut through space was beautiful and terrifying. No wormhole. No quantum tunnel. Just a precise geometric opening that appeared and disappeared like a door closing. High Arbiter, Webb began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The Wanderer is not a military vessel. It carries no weapons. Its mission was peaceful research. Research in restricted space? The speaker was Representative Cross, a Manthari whose species controlled mining operations across half the sector. Her insect-like features clicked with agitation. Your ship scanned 17 of our colony worlds. Military installations? Population centers? Resource deposits? This is espionage, Ambassador. This is an act of war. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Webb noticed something interesting. The species agreeing most loudly were the older ones. The newer council members, civilizations that had joined within the last century, remained mostly quiet. They watched with curiosity rather than anger. I deny any hostile intent, Webb said. The Wanderer was testing new propulsion systems in what our navigational charts indicated was unclaimed territory. We were not aware that Kelthros sector had been designated as restricted. Ignorance is no excuse, Valen snapped. The restriction notice was transmitted to all council members 8 months ago. Earth received this notification along with everyone else. No, High Arbiter. We did not. The simple statement fell like a bomb into the chamber. Silence replaced the angry murmurs. Webb reached into his jacket and produced a data storage device. He held it up for everyone to see. This contains our complete communication records with the Council for the past year. Every transmission, every notification, every piece of official correspondence. I invite the Council to examine it. You will find no mention of Kelthros restrictions. A guard approached and took the device. Within seconds, information flooded the holographic displays. Timestamp after timestamp of boring diplomatic messages. Trade agreement updates, cultural exchange approvals, resource sharing notifications. Nothing about Kelthros. Valen's scales rippled with colors that Webb's implant translated as confusion and suspicion. This proves nothing except what your own records show. You could have deleted the notification. High Arbiter, The voice belonged to Counselor Thane, the oldest member of the assembly. The Prithian rarely spoke, but when he did, even Valen listened. His face looked like dried earth, wrinkled with unimaginable age. The human makes a valid point. If Earth truly received no notification, this incident falls under Article 12 of our Charter. Negligent administration. The fault would be ours, not theirs. That still does not explain their technology, Cross interrupted. Her mandibles clicked faster now. Earth is classified as a Level 4 civilization? The propulsion system we observed requires Level 8 physics at minimum. How does a species advance 4 classification levels in just 37 years? Webb allowed himself a small smile. This was the moment he had been preparing for. The moment that would change everything. Representative Cross, I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about human capabilities. With your permission, I would like to demonstrate something. Valen's 4 eyes narrowed with suspicion. But he gestured permission. Webb reached into his jacket again and withdrew a black sphere about the size of an apple. He tossed it gently into the air. Instead of falling, it hung suspended above his palm, rotating slowly on invisible axes. This is a gravitic stabilizer. Human children use them as toys in our schools. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Webb continued speaking, his voice cutting through the noise. The mathematics behind gravitic manipulation were solved by one of our scientists 19 years ago. Not through stolen technology, not through alien contact, through simple theoretical physics. Her name was Dr. Patricia Nash. She was 17 years old when she published her proof. A teenager solved problems your most advanced species considered impossible. Webb closed his fist around the sphere and it vanished into his palm. He looked up at the assembled council with steady eyes. The problem is not that humanity suddenly became more advanced. The problem is that your initial assessment of our capabilities was based on incomplete data. You evaluated us 37 years ago using standard metrics. Industrial capacity, energy consumption, population distribution, computational power. By those metrics, we appeared level 4, but you never asked about our theoretical sciences. You never inquired about how humans approach problems differently than other species. You assumed our infrastructure limitations reflected our intellectual limitations. You were wrong. Impossible, Cross hissed. Level classifications have predicted development patterns across 200 species for thousands of years. They are universal. They predict development along conventional paths, Webb countered. Humanity does not think conventionally. When Dr. Nash needed quantum computers for her calculations but could not afford them, she used paper and pencil instead. It took her one summer. When our engineers could not build antimatter containment facilities, they designed propulsion systems that did not require antimatter. The Wanderer's drive does not break your physics, counselors. It simply ignores the assumptions you thought were necessary. Valen rose to his full impressive height. You speak of human exceptionalism, Ambassador. Every species claims to be unique. Yet you offer us parlor tricks and convenient excuses instead of real evidence. Then let me offer real evidence. Webb's expression hardened. The Wanderer spent 4 hours in Kelthros space. During that time, she scanned 17 worlds, as Representative Cross mentioned. Would the Council like to know what she found? The question hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. On the 6th world, Menthari Colony MK 774, our scans detected unusual energy signatures beneath the northern ice cap. Specifically, we found weapons batteries. 17,000 automated defense platforms, all aimed at nearby Bentari trade routes. Crosses. Mandibles froze completely still. Article 23 of the Galactic Charter prohibits militarization of colony worlds within 5 light-years of major trade routes. The penalty is immediate expulsion from the Council and seizure of all disputed territories. Webb turned to face Cross directly. The Wanderer was not conducting espionage, Representative, but she did discover some. Would you like to continue questioning human capabilities, or shall we discuss why your species has been secretly violating charter law for the past 6 years? The chamber exploded into chaos. Species shouted at each other in 100 different languages. Accusations flew back and forth. Cross sat frozen in her seat, her insect features showing something that might have been fear. Webb stood calmly in the center of the storm he had created. Guards moved toward him, uncertain if they should arrest him or protect him. Valen tried to restore order, his voice booming over the noise. But nobody was listening anymore. In the confusion, Webb caught the eye of Counselor Thane. The ancient being nodded slowly, a gesture that looked almost like approval. Then Thane's expression changed to something else. Something T looked like warning. Too late, Webb noticed 6 figures standing near the exits. They had not been there before. They simply appeared as if reality itself had allowed them to step through. 5 were species he recognized from the council. The 6th was something else entirely. A being of pure energy contained within geometric patterns of light. The energy being looked directly at Webb despite the chaos around them. Its voice spoke inside his mind without using sound. Well played, Ambassador. But the real game has not yet begun. Then they were gone, vanished as suddenly as they appeared. Webb felt cold despite the warm chamber. He had come here expecting to defend humanity against charges of violating council protocol. Instead, he had exposed a conspiracy and apparently caught the attention of something far more dangerous than an angry assembly. The chaos continued around him, but Webb barely heard it now. His mind raced through implications he had not considered before. Who were those 6 beings? Why did they appear just as he exposed Cross? What did the energy being mean about the real game? Most importantly, what had humanity just stumbled into? 3 hours after the chaos in the Grand Assembly, Webb sat alone in a small room deep within the council complex. The walls were smooth metal that showed no reflections. They called it a security holding area, but Webb recognized a cell when he saw one. He had been stripped of his communication devices and told to wait. For what, nobody would say. The door opened with a soft hiss. Counselor Thane entered, moving slowly as someone who had lived far too long. Behind him came someone Webb did not recognize. Tall and humanoid, but with skin that shifted between blue and silver depending on the light. Their eyes were completely black, showing no pupils or whites. Ambassador Webb. Thane settled himself onto a bench that rose from the floor. This is Investigator Rylan of the Nexus Authority. We need to speak privately. Privately? Webb gestured at the walls. I assume this room is monitored by half the council. Ryland's voice was melodic and strange. I have disabled all surveillance systems within a 50-meter radius. What we discuss now will remain between us unless you choose otherwise. Webb studied them both carefully. Thane he knew by reputation. The oldest serving council member, supposedly incorruptible, widely respected but rarely influential in actual decisions. Rylan was unknown. The name Nexus Authority meant nothing to him. What happened to Representative Cross? Webb asked. Temporarily suspended pending investigation, Thane replied. However, her delegation has made several counter-accusations. They claim your Wanderer's scans could not have penetrated their shielding technology. They suggest you fabricated the weapons evidence using methods they cannot explain. They are calling for Earth's immediate expulsion from the Council. And what does the Council believe? We believe nothing yet, Rylan said. That is why I am here. The Nexus Authority exists outside normal Council politics to investigate exactly these types of claims. I have 3 questions for you, Ambassador. I will know if you lie. First question. Did the Wanderer actually detect weapons on MK774? Yes, Ryland's black eyes flashed violet for just an instant. Some kind of biological lie detection? Webb guessed. Second question. Is the Wanderer's propulsion system derived from technology obtained from non-council sources? Did you receive help from species outside our organization? No, the drive was developed entirely by human scientists using human theoretical frameworks. No outside assistance. Another violet flash. Third question. Does Earth pose a military threat to the Galactic Council? Webb paused. This was a trap disguised as a simple question. If he said no, he appeared weak and possibly dishonest given what the Wanderer had demonstrated. If he said yes, he justified everything Cross accused humanity of doing. That depends, he said carefully, on whether the Council continues treating humanity as equals or begins treating us as threats to be eliminated. Ryland's eyes stayed violet for 3 full seconds before fading back to black. They turned to Thane. He believes what he says. Though his final answer was diplomatically phrased to avoid commitment, naturally, Thane might have smiled, though his ancient face made expressions hard to read. Ambassador, we must discuss uncomfortable truths. Your revelation about Cross has exposed something we have suspected for many years. The Galactic Council is not as unified as it appears. There are factions, secret alliances, shadow agreements that violate our own charter. Cross is not unique. She is merely the first to be caught. You are saying corruption goes deeper than one species hiding illegal weapons. Far deeper. Thane gestured and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed a complex web connecting dozens of council species. Lines ran between them in patterns that suggested coordination. Over the past century, a coalition has formed among the older council members. They control most of the military assets in council space. They dominate economic infrastructure. They determine which technologies reach which species. They call themselves the Stewards. Their stated purpose is guiding younger civilizations towards stability and preventing dangerous developments. Webb studied the web carefully. They are gatekeepers. They control who advances and who does not. Precisely. They determine which civilizations move from level 4 to level 5, which ones gain access to level 6 technologies. They ensure no new species ever accumulates enough power to challenge the existing order. Thane's expression darkened. Humanity's problem, Ambassador, is that you bypassed their gates. You developed technology they never authorized using approaches they never anticipated. Now they are afraid. Afraid enough to expel us from the Council? Afraid enough to destroy you. The words landed like a physical impact. Webb kept his face neutral, but his mind raced through implications. You are saying the Council would attack Earth directly? Not the Council, Ryland interjected. The Stewards work in shadows. They would never risk open conflict in the Assembly. But there are ways to eliminate problematic species. Industrial accidents that spread across continents. Plagues that appear natural until examined closely. Pirate raids that conveniently target critical infrastructure. Many promising civilizations have met unfortunate ends over the centuries. Why are you telling me this? Webb looked between them. If you are part of this conspiracy, why warn me? We are not part of it. Thane's voice carried weight that went beyond his physical frailty. The Nexus Authority exists precisely to counter the Stewards. We have been gathering evidence for decades, but we are a small organization. We cannot act openly without proof strong enough to fracture their coalition. Your Wanderer may have given us that proof. Cross's weapons. And more. Ryland manipulated the holographic display, expanding one section. We believe those weapons are part of a larger network. Hidden military installations throughout Council space. The Stewards have been preparing for something, though we do not know what. If the Wanderer can verify our suspected locations, we would have enough evidence to bring formal charges that even the Stewards cannot suppress. Webb shook his head slowly. You want to use humanity as your investigators? You want to put us in even more danger than we already face? We want to offer you a choice, Thane corrected. The Stewards will move against Earth regardless of your cooperation. They cannot allow your technological independence to inspire other species. But if you help us expose their conspiracy, we can protect you. The Nexus Authority has resources the Stewards do not control. Safe havens. Defensive networks. Political leverage among council members who resent Steward control. How many species are in this nexus of yours? 47. Though most cannot act openly without risking retaliation, Webb did quick mathematics in his head. The Council had 300 member species, 47 allies against a conspiracy controlling most of the power structure. The odds were terrible. I need to contact Earth. This decision is not mine alone to make, of course. Thane rose stiffly. You have 12 hours before the Council reconvenes to vote on sanctions against Earth. I suggest you use that time wisely. The stewards are already working to have you declared a rogue agent. Once that happens, anything you say will be dismissed as conspiracy theories from a disgraced diplomat. The two left, and Webb was alone again. He pulled out a backup communicator hidden in his belt. The primary devices had been confiscated, but Webb had learned long ago to carry redundancies. He activated the quantum link to Earth, knowing the signal would take 90 seconds to reach Sol System. This is Ambassador Marcus Webb to Director Halifax, time code 77 Alpha. Council proceedings have become complicated. Some concerns regarding the Wanderer incident. Request immediate guidance on Protocol 16 procedures. Awaiting response. Protocol 16 was Earth's code for verified conspiracy with immediate threat level. Halifax would understand instantly. Webb watched the timer count down. 90 seconds to Earth, Ninit. Y seconds back. At 45 seconds remaining, his communicator went completely dead, not damaged, not jammed. Simply ceased to exist as a functional device. The lights in his cell flickered and died. Emergency lighting activated, bathing everything in red. When the lights returned to normal a moment later, 6 figures stood in the room with him. They had not entered through the door. They simply appeared, reality bending around them like fabric folding. 5 were species Webb recognized from the council chamber. The 6th was the geometric energy being he had glimpsed earlier. Up close, it was even more unsettling. Patterns of light contained within invisible boundaries, pulsing with colors that hurt to look at directly. Ambassador Webb. The energy being's voice came from everywhere at once. We are the stewards. I believe you and our friend Thane have had quite the conversation. Now it is time we had one as well. Webb's hand went to his communicator, but when he touched it, the device crumbled to dust between his fingers. Please do not be alarmed, the energy being continued. Its tone carried amusement that made Webb's blood run cold. We simply wish to discuss the future. Or more precisely, we wish to discuss whether humanity has a future at all. One of the other figures stepped forward. Representative Cross herself, her mandibles clicking with what might have been satisfaction. Did you truly believe your little revelation would harm us, human? I ordered those weapons built. The Council knew. The Nexus knew. Everyone knew. But there was never enough evidence to act on, and there never will be. We control the investigation process itself. Webb forced himself to stand straight despite the fear climbing his spine. Who are you really? What is this organization? I am Illumin Kane, first steward of the Council of Preservation, the energy being drifted closer. We are the beings who have maintained galactic stability for 3,000 years. We guide civilizations, we prevent catastrophic mistakes. We ensure dangerous species are contained before they threaten cosmic order, and you have decided humanity is dangerous. Humanity is unprecedented, another figure spoke. This one resembled a flower with too many petals, each one a different shade of blue. In 3,000 years, we have catalogued 287 species. Of those, 274 followed predictable patterns. We knew within 30 years of contact how advanced each would become. We have been wrong precisely 13 times. You are the 14th, a third figure moved forward. Tall, scaled, scarred from battles Webb knew nothing about. The 13 previous exceptions were eliminated, 11 through targeted plagues, 1 through economic collapse, 1 through what appeared to be civil war but was actually our direct intervention. All were removed before they could destabilize the order we maintain. The casual admission of genocide hung in the air between them. You are telling me this because you plan to kill me, Webb said flatly. You want me to know humanity is doomed. No, Kane's pattern shifted to something that might have been amusement. "We are telling you this because we are offering you a choice." Webb stood motionless as the 6 stewards arranged themselves around him. Kane hovered at eye level, its geometric patterns pulsing with light that seemed to exist in more dimensions than Webb's eyes could fully process. The other 5 positioned themselves to block every exit, though Webb suspected physical doors were not the real barriers keeping him trapped here. "You are remarkably calm," Kane observed. "Most species react with more visible panic when they realize their civilization's survival hangs by a thread. Panic accomplishes nothing." Webb met what passed for the being's gaze. "What do you want?" "Direct. I appreciate that." Kane's patterns shifted through colors Webb had no names for. "Let me introduce my colleagues properly. High Merchant Drath of the Ocean Consortium. Fleet Commander Vess of the Torvalian Armada. Architect Noom of the Bentari Collective. Prelate Sask of the Hraven Order, and you have already met Representative Cross, though she was not entirely honest about her true position in our organization." Webb looked at each in turn. These were not minor council members. These were leaders of some of the most powerful species in known space. The Torvalian Armada alone controlled 30% of council military forces. The Ocean Consortium dominated interstellar trade. Together, they represented more power than Earth could hope to counter. "You said you had a choice to offer," Webb said. "I am listening." "Humanity is fractured," High Merchant Drath spoke, his voice carrying the calculated precision of someone who thought in profit margins and risk assessments. "Hundreds of nations, thousands of cultural groups, billions of individuals who rarely agree on anything. This makes you dangerous in unexpected ways, but it also makes you controllable." Fleet Commander Vess stepped closer. His scaled face bore scars that told stories of violence Webb could only imagine. "We can destroy Earth. The cost would be substantial but manageable. Alternatively, we can allow humanity to join our organization. You would gain access to technologies beyond your current understanding. Your species would advance to level 8 within a century, level 10 within 5 centuries. You would become one of the galaxy's dominant powers." In exchange for what? Webb already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear them say it. "Compliance," Kane said simply. "Humanity would govern itself internally as it always has, but your external policies would be coordinated through us. When we identify threatening species, you would help contain them. When certain technologies must be suppressed for the greater good, you would assist in that suppression. You would become stewards yourselves, helping to maintain cosmic stability. You want us to become the monsters you are." Prelate Sask made a sound like grinding stones. The Hraven were religious zealots who believed the universe required active management to prevent chaos. "You call us monsters, but we have prevented 17 galactic wars. We have stopped the development of weapons that could sterilize entire sectors. We have maintained peace for 3 millennia while lesser organizations collapsed into barbarism. Our methods are harsh because the alternative is extinction for everyone." Webb walked slowly to the far side of his cell, buying time to think. The stewards watched with the patience of beings who had orchestrated civilizations for longer than humanity had possessed agriculture. "You mentioned the Nexus Authority," he said. "Why have you not eliminated them if they oppose you?" "Because they serve a purpose," Kane replied. "Every stable system requires internal opposition. The Nexus keeps us honest, prevents complacency. They investigate our activities, uncover our smaller operations, force us to be careful and precise. This makes us stronger. When they accumulate too much evidence, we allow them small victories to maintain their hope and motivation. The cycle continues productively. Thane is your controlled opposition. Counselor Thane is a genuine believer in justice. We simply ensure his beliefs remain safely ineffective." Kane's patterns flickered. "Now, Ambassador, we have been patient, but time is limited. The Council reconvenes in 11 hours to vote on sanctions against Earth. We need your answer. Will humanity join the stewards and prosper, or will you choose extinction?" Webb turned back to face them, his mind racing through options and implications. Everything the steward said was designed to make the choice seem inevitable. Join them and survive, or resist and die. But something felt wrong about the entire scenario. Some piece did not fit the pattern. "If you are so powerful," he said slowly, "why do you need my answer at all? Why not simply manipulate humanity into compliance over the next few decades? You have had 3,000 years of practice. Surely you have refined techniques for controlling fractious species." The 5 physical stewards exchanged glances. Kane's geometric form pulsed rapidly, colors shifting faster than before. "You are perceptive," the first steward said, and Webb detected something new in its voice. Something that might have been concern. "The truth is, we cannot easily manipulate humanity because we do not fully understand you. Your cognitive patterns do not match our psychological models. Your development trajectory has been consistently unpredictable. Even now, we cannot reliably forecast your response to our ultimatum. This is why we are speaking openly rather than through usual subtle channels. You have forced us into direct engagement because indirect methods have failed." Webb felt hope surge through him. They were afraid. Not of human ships or weapons, but of something more fundamental: uncertainty. The stewards had spent 3,000 years building a galaxy where everything was predictable and controllable. Humanity broke that paradigm. "I need to speak with my government," Webb said. "Impossible," Cross snapped. "We have severed all Earth communications. The quantum link was cut the moment we entered this room." "Then you will not get an answer." "We will get compliance," Fleet Commander Vest said coldly, "one way or another. If you refuse to speak for humanity, we will find someone who will. Your Director Halifax, perhaps. Or one of your planetary governors. Humans are easily corrupted when offered sufficient power and advantage." Webb smiled and saw confusion ripple across the stewards' faces. "You are right that humanity is fractured," he said. "Hundreds of nations, thousands of cultures, billions of individuals who constantly disagree. But there is one thing you do not understand about that fracturing, thing your models and predictions cannot account for." He stepped toward Kane, close enough that the energy being's geometric patterns reflected in his eyes. "When you threaten us, we become one species. When you push humanity into a corner and give us a common enemy, all those fractures fuse together into something you have never encountered before. We call it defiance." "Defiant corpses achieve nothing," Kane said, but uncertainty colored its tone now. "Perhaps not." Webb pulled something from his jacket pocket. A small black sphere identical to the gravitic toy he had demonstrated in the council chamber. "But I wonder how much you really know about human technology. You saw me show this earlier. A simple toy, you thought. A parlor trick to make a point. But did any of you scan it closely? Did any of you wonder what else it might be?" He tossed the sphere gently upward. It hung in the air between him and the stewards, rotating slowly on invisible axes. "This is not a gravitic stabilizer," Webb said quietly. "It is a quantum resonance transmitter, and it has been broadcasting every word of this conversation to 17 different locations across the galaxy, including Counselor Thane's private chambers, including Nexus Authority headquarters, and including Earth itself through a backup communication system you did not know existed because we built it using principles your species have not discovered yet." The sphere pulsed with soft blue light, confirming the transmission. "So here is my answer to your ultimatum," Webb continued. "Humanity will not join the stewards. We will not become the monsters you are. And if you move against Earth, every species in this galaxy will know exactly what you have done. Your 3,000 years of hidden control will end in a single moment of exposure. The Nexus will have the evidence they need. The younger species will unite against you, and your carefully maintained cosmic order will collapse into the chaos you claim to prevent. For 3 heartbeats?" Nobody moved, then Kane's geometric form exploded into 1,000 fragments of light before reforming into something jagged and hostile. "You are bluffing. Our sensors detected nothing unusual about that device when you displayed it earlier. Your sensors were designed to detect technologies you already understand. That is your fundamental weakness." "Illumine Kane, You are so convinced of your superior knowledge that you cannot imagine truly novel solutions. The Wanderer's Drive System. My transmitter. Human cognitive approaches themselves. You keep encountering things that break your models because we solve problems from angles you never consider possible. Architect Noom had gone pale white, her species' sign of extreme distress. This is catastrophic. If the younger species learn what we have done, they will rebel across the entire council. The stability we have maintained for millennia was built on lies and genocide, Webb interrupted. It deserves to collapse. Fleet Commander Vess's hand moved toward a weapon at his belt, but Kane's voice stopped him instantly. No, violence here would only confirm his recording and make everything worse. We must reconsider our entire approach. There is nothing to reconsider, Webb said firmly. Humanity will expose the stewards to the entire galaxy. The only remaining question is whether you attempt to destroy us in the process, and whether your organization survives what comes after that exposure. The 6 stewards conferred in rapid exchanges of alien languages Webb's translator could barely follow. He saw calculation in their faces, fear, anger, but also something else, recognition. They were beings who had orchestrated civilizations for 3,000 years. They understood when a situation had fundamentally changed beyond their control. Finally, Kane turned back to him, its geometric form subdued and dimmed. You have created an impossible position, Ambassador. If we eliminate humanity, we expose ourselves completely. If we allow you to continue unchecked, you destabilize the cosmic order we have built. There is no acceptable outcome remaining. Then I suggest you find a new order, Webb said. One where species develop freely instead of being controlled. One where the stewards are peacekeepers instead of puppet masters. Or perhaps one where the stewards do not exist at all. The first steward dimmed further, its colors fading to muted tones. The council reconvenes in 11 hours. I suggest you spend that time preparing your evidence carefully, Ambassador. You have won this particular battle, but you have also initiated a war that will reshape the entire galaxy. I sincerely hope humanity is prepared for the consequences of what you have started here. The 6 stewards vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, reality folding around them as they departed. Webb was left alone in his cell with a black sphere that continued spinning innocently in the air above his palm. He caught it carefully and whispered, "Did you get all of that?" Director Halifax's voice crackled through hidden speakers built into the sphere. "Every single word, Marcus. Every threat, every admission, every detail." "Well done. Now comes the difficult part," Webb said, exhaustion suddenly hitting him. "We have to actually change the galaxy." "We are humanity," Halifax replied with confidence. "The difficult part is what we do best." "Prepare yourself, Ambassador. In 11 hours, you are going to shake the foundations of galactic civilization." Webb sat down on the bench and closed his eyes. 11 hours until the council reconvened. 11 hours until he either saved humanity or doomed it completely. 11 hours until 3,000 years of hidden control either ended or tightened its grip forever. He allowed himself 1 minute of rest. Then he began preparing the evidence that would change everything. The grand assembly chamber had never seen so many beings gathered in one place. Representatives from all 300 council species had answered the emergency session summons, abandoning their homeworlds to witness what promised to be either humanity's destruction or its boldest political move in galactic history. Webb walked alone across the obsidian floor. No guards accompanied him this time. He carried only a data cylinder and the weight of his entire species' future on his shoulders. The semicircular platform where High Arbiter Valen presided had been expanded to accommodate additional counselors demanded by emergency protocols. Counselor Thane sat at Valen's right hand, his ancient face carefully neutral. Investigator Ryland stood nearby, their skin shifting through colors that suggested intense interest in what was about to happen. "This council is formally convened," High Arbiter Valen announced, his 4 eyes fixed on Webb with an expression caught between curiosity and deep suspicion. "Ambassador Webb, you requested this emergency session claiming evidence of conspiracy against the Galactic Charter. Our protocols require such evidence be presented immediately and completely. Any deception or exaggeration will result in Earth's immediate expulsion from this council. Do you fully understand these terms? I do, High Arbiter. Then proceed with your presentation. Webb inserted the data cylinder into the chamber's central processing node. The massive holographic display system hummed to life, and suddenly the space above the assembled council filled with an image. 6 beings in a sealed room, with a 7th figure, Webb himself, standing at the center. 17 hours ago, Webb began, his voice amplified throughout the enormous chamber, I was approached by the leaders of an organization calling itself the Stewards. They made me an ultimatum. Join them in secretly controlling galactic civilization, or watch humanity be eliminated exactly as 13 other species have been eliminated over the past 3,000 years. What follows is their conversation, recorded without their knowledge. He activated the recording. The chamber erupted as illumined Kane's voice filled the space, calmly admitting to genocide, manipulation, and millennia of hidden control over the council itself. Webb watched reactions ripple through the assembled species. Shock from younger civilizations. Careful neutrality from older ones who perhaps suspected but never knew for certain. Something approaching terror from those who suddenly understood the implications. When the recording reached Kane's casual admission about 13 eliminated species, Representative Drath of the Ocean Consortium, not the High Merchant Drath who was a steward, but a junior diplomat left to represent the species publicly, stood abruptly. This is complete fabrication. The Ocean government would never participate in. Sit down, Counselor Thane said quietly, but his voice carried authority that stopped Drath mid-sentence. This recording has been verified through Nexus Authority analysis using 17 different authentication methods. It is completely genuine. The recording continued. Webb watched representatives across the galaxy realize that the council they thought governed them was merely theater. That real power had always resided with the stewards. That their civilization's futures had been predetermined by beings who saw them as problems to manage rather than equals to respect. When the recording reached High Merchant Drath's admission about recruiting humanity into the conspiracy, the younger Ocean diplomat collapsed back into his seat, his face twisted with feelings of betrayal. The recording ended with Kane's final warning about initiating galactic war. The chamber fell into shocked silence as 300 species processed what they had just heard. High Arbiter Valen was the first to speak, his voice shaking slightly. If this recording is authentic, we are discussing the complete dissolution of council legal authority. Every decision made in the past 3,000 years could be compromised. Every treaty, every trade agreement, every territorial designation. This is not merely conspiracy, Ambassador Webb. This represents total civilizational collapse. Yes, Webb agreed calmly. Which is exactly why I am not here merely to expose the stewards. I am here to propose a solution that prevents that collapse. He manipulated the holographic controls and new data appeared. Organizational charts, power structure analyses, decades of evidence logs. The Nexus Authority has been gathering evidence of steward activities for many years. With the Wanderer's advanced scanning capabilities and Earth's analytical methods, we have correlated that evidence into a complete picture of their network. We know which species are compromised, which individuals are stewards, which organizations are fronts. More importantly, we know which species are genuinely independent and uncontrolled. A new image appeared showing 123 species highlighted in blue against the council's 300 total members. These species have never been corrupted by steward influence. They represent 40% of council membership, but they control less than 10% of its actual power. They have been kept deliberately weak, deliberately dependent, deliberately prevented from reaching their full potential through technological gatekeeping. One proposed we change that immediately. Counselor Vess of the Torvalian Armada, a cousin of Fleet Commander Vess the Steward, stood abruptly. You propose open rebellion? The dismantling of the very structure that has maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. Do you understand the chaos that would inevitably result? I propose justice, Webb corrected firmly. The stewards claim they prevented galactic wars, but their own recorded words admit they engineered economic collapses and military conflicts when it served their purposes. They did not prevent chaos. They managed it. They weaponized it. And they used fear of chaos to justify absolute control. Architect Noom's public representative, a young Bentari named Petal whose colors shifted with visible distress, spoke with trembling voice. Even if everything you say is true, the stewards control most of the Council's military forces. Any attempt to remove them from power would result in actual war, not managed conflict. Species would die. Entire worlds would burn. Not if we approach this intelligently, Webb brought up a new schematic showing complex interconnections. The steward's power derived from three sources: military force, economic control, and technological gatekeeping. Military force requires logistics and supply lines. Economic control requires infrastructure and cooperation. Technological gatekeeping requires secrets and restricted information. All three can be systematically undermined without direct military conflict. He expanded the schematic, showing detailed supply routes, resource dependencies, and knowledge distribution networks. Earth and the Nexus Authority propose a comprehensive three-phase plan. Phase 1 involves immediate disclosure of all suppressed technologies to all Council members. Within one standard year, every species will have access to Level 8 knowledge, completely eliminating the steward's technological advantage. Phase 2 involves economic restructuring using human distributed network theory, breaking up monopolies and creating genuine market competition. Phase 3 involves military rebalancing through mutual defense pacts among all independent species. This is complete madness. Representative Cross interrupted, her mandibles clicking with barely controlled fury. You would throw away 3,000 years of hard-won stability for naive idealism. The younger species are absolutely not ready for Level 8 technology. They will destroy themselves within a generation. That is their choice to make, Webb said flatly. Every species deserves the fundamental right to fail on their own terms rather than be controlled for their supposed protection. That is what true self-determination means. And what happens, Cross hissed, when one of these newly empowered species develops planet-destroying weapons? When they decide to test those weapons on their neighbors out of curiosity or ancient grudges? Will you personally accept responsibility for those deaths, human? Webb met her gaze steadily. What happens when a species that has been deliberately kept weak finally receives the tools to defend themselves against larger aggressive neighbors? When they can negotiate from actual strength instead of managed weakness enforced by hidden controllers? Yes, there will be conflicts. Yes, some species will make terrible choices, but they will be genuine choices made by free beings, not illusions of choice created by puppet masters. High Arbiter Valen's scales rippled with colors suggesting deep contemplation. The Torvalian leader was not himself a steward. Fane's investigations had confirmed that crucial fact, but he had governed the Council for 40 years believing he held real power. Now he understood he had been merely a figurehead performing for an audience. Ambassador Webb, Valen said slowly and carefully, your proposal requires overthrowing the fundamental structure of galactic governance that has existed for millennia. Even if the independent species support your plan enthusiastically, the steward-aligned species still represent 60% of Council membership. They will never voluntarily surrender their power and advantages. You are essentially asking us to choose civil war. I am asking you to choose freedom over comfortable servitude, Webb's voice rang through the chamber. But I understand the legitimate concern, which is why Phase 1 of our plan includes important safety mechanisms. The technology releases will be carefully staggered with priority given to defensive systems and economic development tools. Weapons technology will be released last, and only to species that have demonstrated stable governance through rigorous Nexus Authority evaluation processes. We are not proposing uncontrolled chaos. We are proposing managed liberation. A contradiction in terms, Fleet Commander Vess's cousin said dismissively. Perhaps. But it is infinitely better than managed slavery disguised as protection. Counselor Thane rose slowly, his ancient body moving with visible difficulty, but his voice carrying undeniable strength. I have spent 200 years investigating the stewards. I have watched promising species mysteriously vanish. I have seen flourishing civilizations suddenly collapse. I have gathered evidence that was always insufficient to act upon because the stewards controlled the investigation process itself from the very top. Now, finally, we have completely irrefutable proof of their crimes against galactic civilization. The question before this council is fundamentally simple. Do we value comfortable stability over justice? Do we accept pleasant lies over uncomfortable truths? He turned to face the assembled representatives directly. I am extremely old. I will not live to see the galaxy Ambassador Webb proposes become reality. But I remember clearly when this council was first founded, before the stewards consolidated their hidden power. I remember when species joined us as genuine equals, not as pieces to be positioned on a strategic board. That galaxy was chaotic, yes. It was unpredictable and sometimes frightening. But it was honest. I vote to support the human proposal completely. A second voice joined him immediately. Investigator Rylan, their skin flashing through a rapid spectrum of colors. The Nexus Authority supports this plan enthusiastically. We have been preparing for exactly this moment for decades. Then a third voice, Representative Petal, despite her obvious fear making her colors pale. The Bentari Public Delegation, not the Steward faction, supports fundamental change. More voices joined like a wave building. Species Webb had never even heard of finding sudden courage to declare independence. The younger Ashan diplomat. The Vrelian representatives who had served as guards. Small species from the distant rim. Large species from the galactic core. Beings who had spent their entire existences believing they were free but now understood the terrible truth, but many others remained completely silent. The Torvalian military delegation. The Manthari economic bloc. The Friven religious order. 200 species stayed quiet, calculating odds. Waiting to see which way power would ultimately flow. High Arbiter Valen looked across the divided chamber and made a decision that would define his entire legacy. I call for more vote. All species supporting the human proposal for immediate council restructuring. Indicate your position now. Holographic lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Markers showing each species' official position. Blue for support. Red for opposition. White for abstention. Webb watched the count climb steadily. 100 votes for change. 110. 120-3. Then the count suddenly stalled. The Steward-aligned species had voted in a solid coordinated block. 177 against. 54 species had abstained completely, too afraid to commit to either side. The proposal had failed by raw numbers. Representative Cross's laughter clicked through the chamber like breaking glass. You see clearly now, human? Your naive idealism breaks against hard reality. The council has spoken with democratic authority. Now you will face serious consequences for your dangerous interference. But Webb was smiling calmly. The proposal was never the actual point, Representative. The vote itself was. He manipulated the holographic controls again, and the display. Y showed the voting pattern overlaid precisely with the Steward organizational chart. Every single species that voted against the proposal was marked as compromised. Every abstaining species now appeared vulnerable to pressure from both sides. You have just shown the entire galaxy exactly which species are under Steward control, Webb said directly to Cross, and which ones are genuinely independent. You have given us a complete detailed map of your entire network. The Nexus Authority now knows precisely where to focus investigations, which supply lines to monitor carefully, which diplomatic channels to intercept. You traded immediate voting victory for long-term catastrophic exposure. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications became clear to everyone. Representative Cross's mandibles froze completely motionless. "Thank you," Webb said with genuine pleasantness, "for your unknowing cooperation in exposing yourselves completely." 3 standard months after the vote that changed everything, Webb stood in a location that officially did not exist. A massive space station hidden in the dark between star systems. Powered by technology the Council would not be able to detect for another decade. Around him, representatives from 123 independent species worked at stations humming with coordinated activity. This was the Free Galactic Assembly, and it was already reshaping the galaxy in fundamental ways. Ambassador Webb, Director Halifax's image materialized on the main communications display, her expression carefully neutral. "I'm currently watching the Council's latest emergency session. They are extremely unhappy with our most recent technology release." Webb glanced at another screen showing High Arbiter Valen's scales rippling with colors. His translator interpreted as barely controlled fury. The stewards had just discovered that 40 species now possess gravitational manipulation technology, courtesy of coordinated data drops from Wanderer-class ships that had proliferated faster than the Council could possibly track. "They will adjust to the new reality," Webb said calmly. "How are our Mutual Defense Pact negotiations progressing?" 78 species have signed the Protection Treaty. The stewards are absolutely furious but cannot act openly without confirming everything we exposed about their conspiracy. It is beautiful, really. We have locked them in a position where their only options are accept gradual decline or expose themselves further through overt aggression that proves our accusations. Any signs they are choosing direct aggression? Some concerning fleet movements in Sector 7, but Investigator Ryland's people are monitoring closely. If the Torvalian Armada moves against any Alliance members, we will know 90 seconds after the order is given. Halifax smiled grimly. Turns out the Nexus Authority has been successfully infiltrating steward organizations for far longer than anyone realized. They were simply waiting for the right moment to act. Webb nodded thoughtfully. The past 3 months had been an intensive education in subtle warfare. No battles. No formal declarations. Just steady pressure applied to every weak point in the steward network. Technology releases that eliminated their knowledge advantage. Economic treaties that bypassed their monopolies completely. Defense pacts that made their military superiority increasingly irrelevant. "Sir, incoming transmission," one of the station's communication officers called out urgently. Source identified as Illumin Kane. Webb and Halifax exchanged significant glances. "Put it through," Webb said. The first steward's geometric form materialized in the projection field, its patterns noticeably subdued compared to their first meeting. "Ambassador Webb, Director Halifax. We should speak privately about the current situation." "I am listening," Webb said carefully. 3 months ago, I told you that you had initiated a war that would fundamentally reshape the galaxy. I was correct in that assessment. What I completely failed to predict was how quickly you would win that war. Kane's colors shifted to tones Webb's translator interpreted as resignation. The stewards controlled galactic civilization for 3,000 years, through superior knowledge and careful management of power structures. You have systematically dismantled both foundations in less than 1 standard season. You made it remarkably easy, Halifax said bluntly. Your entire system was built on secrecy and the assumption that nobody would challenge the fundamental structure. Once we exposed the secrets and demonstrated that challenge was possible, the structure collapsed under its own contradictions. Yes, Kane dimmed noticeably. Which brings me to why I am contacting you now. The stewards are finished as a controlling organization. Many of my colleagues wish to fight on desperately to preserve what influence we can through increasingly extreme measures. I am here to tell you they will fail completely. More importantly, I am here to offer something you will find unexpected. Which is? Webb asked, genuine cooperation without hidden agendas. The word hung in the space between them. Webb felt Halifax's questioning eyes on him. The stewards were not entirely wrong in their original assessment of galactic dangers, Kane continued. 3,000 years ago, when we first consolidated power, we did so responding to a genuine existential threat. Uncontrolled technological proliferation had led to devastating wars that sterilized 17 entire sectors. 200 million sentient beings died horribly before the older species managed to establish some form of order. The stewards emerged from that chaos with a sincere mission: ensure it never happened again. So you became the very thing you originally fought against, Webb said. Controllers, manipulators, eventually genocidal enforcers. Yes, over millennia, our mission corrupted gradually until we became indistinguishable from the threat we originally fought. I do not deny this historical fact. But the underlying problem remains valid. Uncontrolled technological advancement does create genuine existential dangers. Your own Earth history confirms this clearly. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, artificial intelligence crises. You understand perfectly that knowledge without wisdom leads inevitably to catastrophe. Webb exchanged a long, meaningful look with Halifax. She nodded almost imperceptibly. What exactly are you proposing? Webb asked. A workable compromise. The Free Galactic Assembly handles governance, economic policy, military affairs, everything the Council once pretended to do but actually did not. The stewards, or what remains of our organization, become what we should have been from the very beginning. Advisors, consultants, beings with long experience who can offer warnings about dangerous paths without having the power to enforce those warnings. We keep our accumulated knowledge but permanently surrender our control? Why would we possibly trust you after everything? Halifax's question was direct. Because I am not offering trust. I am offering complete verification. Kane's pattern shifted to display complex mathematical structures. The steward's accumulated knowledge represents 3,000 years of galactic experience. Technologies the Wanderer has not discovered yet. Phenomena your scientists do not know exist. Dangers you cannot predict because you have not lived through the cycles we have witnessed 17 complete times. This knowledge will be freely shared with the Free Assembly under permanent Nexus Authority oversight. You gain our wisdom. We gain continued relevance. Everyone benefits. And the stewards who refuse this arrangement? Webb asked, will be dealt with by other stewards. Kane's tone carried grim finality. We understand our organization cannot survive in its current form. Those who refuse to adapt will be removed from power by those of us who recognize reality. Consider this an internal civil war you need not fight yourselves. Webb walked to the viewport and looked out at the dark between distant stars. Somewhere out there, 297 species were recalculating their positions in a galaxy that had fundamentally changed overnight. The stewards were offering peaceful exit from power in exchange for advisory roles. It was logical, efficient, probably the best possible outcome. It also felt suspiciously easy. I want to know what you are not telling me, Webb said without turning around. What is the real reason you are surrendering power now? For several long seconds, Kane remained silent. Then its geometric form pulsed with colors Webb's translator struggled to interpret. Fear, perhaps. Or something very close to it. Because we have detected something unprecedented, the first steward said quietly. In the deep dark beyond the Council's charted territories. Energy signatures matching nothing in our extensive databases. Vessels moving using principles we cannot explain or understand. Entities we cannot classify using any known framework. Webb turned back sharply. You are saying there is an external threat approaching. I am saying the galaxy is far larger and stranger than even 3,000 years of experience can fully encompass. The stewards maintained order in our relatively small corner of space, but we always knew there were things beyond our borders we could not control or even comprehend. Recently, those things have been moving closer, coming toward U.S., and we genuinely do not know if they are dangerous or merely curious, hostile or simply alien beyond our ability to comprehend their nature. You want the Free Assembly to fight your war? Halifax said. I want the Free Assembly to be properly prepared for something the stewards never faced directly. Genuine external contact with civilizations that did not develop within our controlled network of species. You broke our control, Ambassador Webb. You freed 300 species to develop along their own unique paths. I'm telling you that freedom comes with responsibilities we managed for you. Now you will face them directly without our interference. Webb looked at Halifax's image. She was clearly running calculations behind her eyes, weighing probabilities and risks. We need to independently verify these energy signatures, she said. Send us all your data immediately. Of course. Kane transmitted a massive data package. But understand that verification will take considerable time you may not have. The signatures are getting measurably closer. Whatever they represent, they will reach Council space within 5 to 10 standard years. You have that long to unify the galaxy under your new order and prepare for something none of us can currently understand. The first steward's image flickered slightly. I will await your response to our proposal, Ambassador. But whether you accept our help or not, I strongly suggest you focus the Free Assembly's efforts on preparing for what comes next. The stewards maintained order for 3,000 years. You have less than 10 to create something better and stronger. The transmission ended abruptly. Webb and Halifax stared at each other across the quantum link. Could be an elaborate lie, Halifax said. Another manipulation to keep themselves relevant and influential. Could be. Webb pulled up the transmitted data package and began scanning through the energy signatures. They were genuinely strange, patterns that matched no known propulsion system or natural stellar phenomenon. But we have to assume it is completely real. Then we have a serious problem. The Free Assembly is barely functional yet. We have spent 3 months dismantling steward control, but have not built anything truly coherent to replace it. If something arrives from the deep dark in 5 years, we will face it as 300 arguing species instead of a unified civilization. Webb nodded slowly. Which means we need to accelerate everything dramatically. Technology releases, defense packs, economic integration. We have to build in 5 years what the stewards built over 3,000. That is impossible. We are humanity, Webb said, echoing words Halifax had spoken to him months ago. The impossible is what we do best when we are properly motivated. 5 years later, Webb stood in the newly constructed assembly hall on the station that now bore an official name. Nexus Station, acknowledged capital of the Free Galactic Assembly. Around him, representatives from 206 species. 69 more had joined after the stewards' peaceful surrender. Debated the first complete draft of Galactic Charter 2.0. It was beautiful chaos. Argumentative, passionate, genuine chaos. Species that had been silent for centuries finding their voices. Young civilizations proposing ideas that made older species uncomfortable. Conflicts erupting and being resolved through actual debate rather than hidden manipulation. Councillor Thane, now serving as the Assembly's first chief arbiter, gavelled for attention. The ancient Prithian had lived long enough to see his dream of genuine galactic democracy finally realized. Order, please, he called out, and gradually the chamber quieted. We have been debating Article 7 for 3 hours. I propose we table it until tomorrow and move to Article 8, External Contact Protocols. Webb rose from his seat. Chief Arbiter, if I may present the proposed language. Thane nodded, and Webb activated his display. The text appeared for everyone to see. The Free Galactic Assembly recognizes that our civilization represents only a small fraction of the universe's sentient species. We commit to meeting external civilizations with openness, curiosity, and appropriate caution. We will not assume hostility, but we will maintain defensive readiness. We will not impose our values, but we will defend our principles. We seek peaceful coexistence with all beings of goodwill, while remaining prepared to resist any who threaten the freedom we have fought to achieve. Representative Petal of the Bentari stood. Her colors had deepened over the years, showing confidence of someone who had found their voice. Ambassador Webb, this language seems directed at a specific threat. Are you referring to the energy signatures the former stewards detected? I am. The Assembly's combined scientific resources have independently verified the signatures. Something is definitely approaching our space, and we will encounter it within the next few years. This article establishes how we will respond. The vote was called. Article 8 passed with 92% support. Months later, Webb watched from the Wanderer's bridge as the ship emerged at the edge of known space. Captain Torres sat in the command chair, her hands moving across holographic controls. Energy signature confirmed, she reported. Distance 17 light-years. Size impossible to determine but extremely large. Webb studied the readings carefully. The signal pulsed with rhythms suggesting intelligence. Send the message, Webb ordered. Torres activated the communication system. The message pulsed outward. We are the Free Galactic Assembly. We represent 300 civilizations committed to peaceful coexistence and mutual respect. We welcome contact with other sentient species. We offer friendship. We ask only for honest engagement. Please respond. Then they waited. 20-7 hours later, the response arrived. A burst of pure information that bypassed translation systems and spoke directly to pattern recognition centers in the brain. When it ended, Webb found himself on the floor with Torres kneeling beside him. Both their noses were bleeding. Sir, what was that? Webb wiped blood from his nose and laughed. I think that was them saying we are nothing like they expected. Get me links to Halifax and Thane, and get me Kane. We are going to need everyone for this. Months later, the Assembly's first contact fleet met the visitors halfway. Webb stood in Nexus Station's command center, watching through quantum-linked cameras as Captain Torres led the delegation. The visitors' ships defied description. They seemed to exist partially outside normal space. When they opened communication channels, the translation was clearer. We are the collective beyond. We have observed your civilization with great interest. You have done something unexpected. Torres kept her composure. We are honored by your interest. What did we do that was unexpected? You freed yourselves from control while maintaining cooperation. Most civilizations, at your development level, either remain controlled or descend into chaos. You have achieved a rare balance we wish to study. This we wish to understand. We offer exchange our knowledge for your insight. Behind Webb, Kane made a sound like wind through crystal. They are anthropologists? Cosmic scale researchers studying how civilizations develop. They are not here to conquer. They are here to learn. And to teach, Webb added. They are offering to share knowledge if we share our experience building the Free Assembly. Do we accept? Halifax asked. Webb thought about the journey beginning with one unidentified ship. The Wanderer's entrance had triggered exposure of steward control. That exposure led to revolution. Revolution led to reconstruction. Reconstruction led to humanity and 300 species standing together to meet the unknown as free civilizations. We accept, he said. The exchange began, continuing for decades. The collective beyond shared knowledge of sciences the Assembly had not imagined. In return, the Assembly shared the story of how 300 species learned to govern themselves, to trust each other, to build something better. Years later, Webb retired and returned to Earth. He taught at the Free Assembly's first interspecies university, telling the story to students. From across the galaxy, his favorite part was always the moment when the stewards offered their ultimatum, and he looked at beings with 3,000 years of experience and said, "We choose defiance." That moment, he would tell his students, was when humanity truly joined the galactic community. Not as supplicants or conquerors, but as equals who understood that freedom requires courage. Remember that. Whatever you encounter, whatever ultimatums you face, remember the choice to be free is always available. It is just rarely the easy choice. His students, human and alien alike, would listen and understand. They were the generation carrying the Free Assembly forward. The galaxy had changed because one ship entered restricted space, because one species refused control, because enough beings chose freedom over security. It would continue changing. That was the point. In a galaxy without hidden masters, change was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace. The story ended there, But the galaxy's story continued, and that Webb always thought was the best ending of all. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.